Welcome on in, WIP Daily. Joe Giglio with you. Appreciate everyone subscribing, following, of course, watching on our 94 WIP YouTube page. Tucker Bagley will join me in a little bit to give his take on really a story that keeps building here with the Phillies. As we're less than a week till the trade deadline. Trades are starting to happen now. The Angels saying they're keeping Ohtani. They trade for Giolito. A couple of relievers got moved. Med Rosario went to the Dodgers. So things are starting to happen now in the trade market. And the Phillies have, about 5 or 6 days to figure this thing out, what they're going to do, who they're going to get, and where they're going to try to upgrade this team. But no matter what they do, none of this matters if Trea Turner doesn't start to be a better player and turn things around. And Rob Thompson finally, I think, heeded the advice of anyone that was thinking clearly here, and that was to sit Trea Turner down for a day. Give this guy a day to clear his head, double day off with the day off for the Phillies on Thursday, and then we'll see what happens on Friday. I mean, he's going to be in the lineup. The Phillies aren't going to just permanently bench their $300 million shortstop. But, Rob Thompson did leave the door open yesterday to the idea that maybe Trea Turner wouldn't hit second in the order when the Phillies got back to play, and he's back in the lineup against the Pirates on Friday. And after watching the Phillies last night beat the Baltimore Orioles without Trea Turner, and they won the series, which is a good series win for the Phillies against a team that has the best record in the AL, and it was done without Trea Turner. It was done with Nick Castellanos hitting second. It was done with Edmundo Sosa playing a better shortstop defensively than Trea Turner and hitting a home run without Trea Turner in the lineup. It was kind of an eye-opening moment. Sometimes you really can't get the full picture of what is going on with a player or a team until you subtract them. Like you change the variables up and you move Trea Turner out of the lineup. You put someone else in. And I know it's one game and it's a super small sample, and any one baseball player in any one game could look better than another one. That's not really true. I'm not trying to say Edmundo Sosa is a better overall player and will be for the next X amount of days and years than Trea Turner, but he did provide more last night, and the Phillies were better last night without Trea Turner. And I'm at this point now. Trea needed a day off. The Phillies gave it to him, and now when he comes back in the lineup, the Phillies should move Trea Turner down. And when I say that, I don't mean to the cleanup spot the way they did last time for a few days to get him going, about a week in early June. He had one game in the 5 spot, and then he spent about a week in the 4 spot, and then they moved him back up to 2. Now, I think Trea Turner needs to be dropped towards the bottom of the Phillies order, and we could have a conversation on what that means here and kind of throw out a couple different potential batting orders they could throw out tomorrow night in Pittsburgh. But we're at the point now, Trea Turner's gotten to dictate a lot of this throughout the season. He's never really batted below 5 in his major league career. You go back, it's very minimal games he's batted below 1, 2, 3 in his big league career. And the other thing he's dictated a little bit this year is days off. I remember in early May, he was struggling. Of course he was. He's always struggling this year. Rob Thompson said, hey, you need a day? And he said, no. And then earlier this week, Rob Thompson said, you need a day? And he said, no. And both times Rob Thompson has said, okay, I'll listen to the player. And it's a tricky spot for Thompson because he's trying to keep this guy engaged, trying to keep this guy all in, trying to make sure they're on the same page. His first year managing him, and Trea Turner likely got to outlast Rob Thompson here. So he's got to, kind of manage the player and manage a star player here. But it seemed like Rob's done with this now, saying I took the decision out of his hands whether he's going to play on Wednesday or not. And that should be the same thing now. I mean, he doesn't get to decide where he hits in the order. He's hitting like a bottom of the order player. He has, as I look at it right now, I believe after the Sosa home run last night, as I look through the Phillies lineup, I believe, the worst OPS, and I'm going to exclude Garrett Stubbs because he's a backup catcher, plays once a week. The worst OPS on the team belongs to Trea Turner. Yeah, I mean, you give me Rojas, he's been here for 10 seconds, but, you talk about Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, Bohm, Stott, Real Muto, Marsh, Sosa. They're all higher. I mean, guys, they're all higher than Trea Turner. He's been the worst hitter. So he doesn't get to dictate where he hits. And I think we're at the point now where the Phillies have better options for a little while here. I would put Trea back in the lineup on Friday, and I would hit him towards the bottom of the order. So I have a couple of machinations of this. And, it depends on how married the Phillies are to avoiding left, and a bunch of left-hand hitters in a row, because it does become a problem late in games. And it depends on how they want to spread the lineup out. But I've got 2 potential options for the top, and then 2 spots they could possibly put Trea Turner in when he enters the lineup. So let's start with the first one. I think it's one people will be excited about because people have wanted this guy at or near the top for months now. So the first one involves Bryson Stott becoming the 2-hitter, Trea Turner dropping down. So it'd be Schwarber, Stott, Harper, left. Castellanos, Bohm, Real Muto, Marsh, Turner, Rojas, or Cave, who is playing left field. So in this lineup, you have 3 lefties to start it off. You have Turner 8. I mean, they could also put him 6, and you put Real Muto 8, but then you're kind of demoting 2 guys at once because Real Muto's kind of hung out in that 5-6 range, and maybe that double he had last night is a start or something for JT Realmuto. He hasn't really hit either. He's had a disappointing season, and we're probably starting to see the decline phase of JT Realmuto. But so 6 or 8 in this particular lineup. I had him at 8. Now, I like the idea of Stott, but there's also a lot of moving parts in this. You're moving Stott up, so you're taking him out of a comfort zone he's been in that 5-6 range. You're dropping Turner way down. Maybe you're dropping Real Muto way down. So there's a lot of different changes here with this lineup. I like it, don't love it. Here's the one I like better. It's not exactly what we saw last night with Castellanos, but I think it spreads things out a little bit better. It has less moving parts. And I think the 2-hitter in this lineup is just better equipped to be a 2-hitter right now than Trea Turner. So I actually like the idea of Alec Bohm moving up to the 2 spot. Schwarber, Bohm, Harper, 1, 2, 3. Castellanos 4, back where he's been, most of the season. Leave Stott at 5. He's comfortable there, and he's done a great job at RBI spots. Real Muto 6, Marsh 7, Turner 8, and then whoever's playing left field, obviously Jake Cave or Rojas, or if they have a big acquisition in left field next week, we can rethink this whole thing. But left field would then become the 9-hitter. So Schwarber, Bohm, Harper, Castellanos, Stott, Real Muto, Marsh, Turner, left fielder. I think we're at the point now where Trea Turner is an 8th-place hitter. That's what he's hit like this entire season. And I'll go one further, and we'll bring Tucker on in a minute to give his thoughts on Trea Turner. After watching Sosa last night, both defensively and offensively, and I know this is very tricky because this is an 11-year, $300 million contract. But I'm at the point now where if Trea Turner – so the first move is I'm dropping him in the order. Let's see if less pressure, bottom of the order, gets him going. But let's try that for a week or two. If in a week or two he's still not hitting, and it's still the same thing it's been all year, I'm not going to hesitate once a week to put Sosa out there and sit Trea Turner down. I'm not saying bench the guy forever. I'm not saying his career's over in Philadelphia. But these games matter. Like the Phillies are trying to capture a playoff spot. Every game matters. I think we've seen enough now in this NL wildcard race that none of these teams are going to run away. So, and I don't think any of them are going to totally fall off. I mean, the Giants and Marlins and Reds have all had significant losing streaks over the past week and a half to 2 weeks, and nothing's happened. Like they're all still bunched up. So it tells me no one's going to just disappear. The 5 teams that are in it, they're all going to stay in it. Maybe, and it's becoming less likely by the day, a Mets or a Padres jumps back in the race, or the Cubs, but probably not. So these 5 teams that are fighting for 3 spots, nobody's going to run away and hide, and no one's going to play so bad while the others play so well that they fall off. So we're likely heading towards tiebreakers deciding a playoff spot, or 1 or 2 games between these 5 teams all the way through the end of September. So I can't just give away games because Trea Turner signed a big contract in November. They got to win. So if he doesn't start hitting, I would look once a week, just sit him down, get Edmundo Sosa out there, and maybe like last night, it gives you a spark. So first thing I'm doing is I'm dropping him all the way to 8 in the lineup, and I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of, hey, you don't hit once a week, maybe it gets a tough Friday that we know is going to give you trouble, you sit down. Tucker, what are you thinking here on Trea, and how far in the lineup should they drop him? Because I know it was only 1 game. They were better when he wasn't in the lineup, and certainly not hitting second last night.
Yeah, and you mentioned they scored 6 runs, and Edmundo Sosa and Jake Cave are 2 guys who really sparked the offense. I mean, you kind of look at this team, and I know Rob Thompson said earlier this week that he doesn't want to shake up the lineup. He wants to keep the guys at the top. I don't know if that's really necessary. Like, I think back, did you ever watch Friday Night Lights, the TV show? Like, I think season 2, they're, stuck in a rut, and one day in practice, they just, swap offense and defense. All the offensive players play defense and vice versa. Rob Thompson should do that for a game. Put all the guys at the bottom at the top, put all the guys at the top at the bottom. I mean, I think there's a point last night where the top of the lineup was 1 for 9, and the bottom 3 guys were 5 for 10 or something along those lines. I mean, the bottom of the lineup carried you last night against the best team in baseball, and they really have been. You go back to the walk-off night the night before, that was keyed by Bryson Stott and Alec Bohm, 2 guys who really have struggled to crack the top 5 of this lineup. I think those 2 plus Brandon Marsh, who still leads the team in OPS. Trea Turner hasn't been great, but the rest of the top of the lineup right now hasn't really hit that well either. So I don't know how far he can drop down Trea Turner. I think 8 feels about right, maybe 9. If it wasn't for the contract, I don't think he'd even be on the field right now. Like, I think him sitting on the bench next to Rob Thompson is kind of where he belongs at the moment. But if you have to put him in there, yeah, he belongs at the bottom of the lineup until he proves otherwise. And I kind of like Castellanos in the 2-hole if he's hitting. I just think you need a strong right-handed bat. If Schwarber and Harper are going to be 1 and 3, and we saw it last year, like that 2-hole in the lineup becomes really key because you're going to face a lot of left-handed pitching when it comes to the postseason. And J.T. Realmuto had a couple really good at-bats yesterday. He hit the ball really hard, so maybe he's starting to come out of his shell and can be that guy. But I think if Turner isn't going to step up, you're going to need a right-handed bat at the top of the lineup. Maybe that comes in the trade deadline. Maybe that comes in, the next 5 days or so, because right now what we've seen from this offense just hasn't been good enough. Like, they've had enough issues otherwise that I don't think we're talking about it a ton. But, I mean, their offense has been putrid for most of the season. It's been nothing like what we expected it would be.
Well, and you're right about the lefty thing. Like, if the Phillies do get to the playoffs, teams are going to throw lefties at them, whether it be the Braves with Max Fried, the Dodgers with Kershaw, Urias, the Reds with Abbott. I mean, you go through it. Every team's Luzardo with Miami. Whoever they match up against is going to say, hey, Harper and Stott and Schwarber, let's line up a lefty to face these guys, because the righties, I mean, obviously Castellanos had a nice season, although he's fallen back a little bit this second half, but they're going to say, like, Trea Turner has taken advantage of it. Just throw lefties at him. So it's a big deal there. It's funny, as Tucker mentioned the flipping of the lineup thing, it reminded me of Jim Fregosi, of course, the former Phillies manager, and then he went on to manage the Blue Jays for a little bit before his managerial career ended. I remember a story. This has got to be those late 90s Blue Jays when Fregosi was there, and they were struggling, and he literally picked the lineup out of a hat. Like, he threw the 9 names into a hat one day, and he just picked them out. And that was, I think it kind of loosened the team up. And who knows if it even worked or not. It was a million years ago. But, like, we're at the point now where what's the difference? I mean, the bottom of the order is done better than the top. Schwarber has struggled for most of the season, except his power has been there. And now the Turner thing. But Trea Turner has not earned enough cachet here in Philadelphia in a Phillies uniform that his preferences matter to me. Like, Kyle Schwarber, number one, helped this team make the World Series last year. Number two, is proven to be a better leadoff hitter than other places. Bryce Harper won an MVP here, had an incredible postseason here last year. He's become a Philly. Right? Those guys, a little bit more cachet on what they're comfortable with, whether it's 1, whether it's 3, whether it's 4, whatever. Trea Turner doesn't have that. So Trea Turner can feel whatever he feels about days off and not wanting to have them. And I'm sure he's probably embarrassed deep down because he's not living up to, I mean, forget his contract. He's not living up to being, even a really good player right now. He's just not. So as the Phillies reintegrate him back into the lineup in Pittsburgh on Friday night, they should not be beholden to the number 2 spot. And really, I think it's not so much like last time Topper did this. It was like, well, we'll just drop it down to 4. We'll get him going there and move him right back up. No, I think it needs to be more drastic. Drop him down 8. 6 might be more palatable, but again, that drops Realmuto as well. Drop him to 8. I mean, what's the worst that happens? He's embarrassed about it. He gets frustrated. Go hit, man. If you hit, and by the way, the story that came out, Kevin Long quoted in The Athletic, and one of the quotes about Turner and trying to get him to be comfortable here was absolutely remarkable and drove me crazy. So the quote was, "We're all working really hard to get him more comfortable, but it's Philly, and it takes time to adjust to the way it is here." Such a cop-out, such an excuse. This has nothing to do with it being at Citizens Bank Park. I think until the last week, Trea Turner barely heard a boo. Trea Turner has been supported. Most fans have just been overwhelmingly in the camp of he's going to turn this around. So that's such nonsense. And it tells me the excuse making has started for a player that was supposed to be better than all this. So I'm beyond the point of kid gloves here. For Trea Turner, go hit in the 8. Go hit in the 8 spot. Get hot there, and then the Phillies could consider moving him up. They have to make him less important before he torpedoes this season more than he already has. Appreciate everyone subscribing, following, of course, watching here on the 94 WIP YouTube page. The Phillies get a big series win over the Baltimore Orioles, and now a trip to Pittsburgh before the MLB trade deadline next week. And Dave Dombrowski has got his work cut out for him because, as Tucker said, this offense has not been good enough. They need help. It would sure help if the $300 million shortstop actually hit like one. But until that happens, this team needs a bat. We'll see what Dombrowski does, and I can't wait to see where Rob Thompson puts Trea Turner in the lineup. I would drop him all the way to 8, starting in Pittsburgh on Friday night. Thanks so much for watching and listening. WIP Daily, and we'll talk tomorrow right here on the 94 WIP YouTube page.